Alright, so, we finally got the Smite Trickster running. It finally freaking happened. It took, I guess, 3 weeks, a little bit longer than I would have liked, but we got it running. I scour chanced the Doyanis finally. This was the piece of gear I needed the most to actually make the build pop off. I went and tried everything to get this chest. I did mythic orbs, I did magic finding, I did betrayal safe houses, ancient orbing from Hobby. I tried a lot of things. Ultimately, just scour chancing worked. Yeah, Faustus Gold Gambler as well, right? But yeah, anyway, we finally got the chest, so we got the build up and running. And so Toad has asked me to do a little bit of an overview over the build in terms of the progression, how I got the gear. Obviously, we're just following alongside Ben's progression. Ben is also SSF Hardcore playing the same build. Obviously, Ben has like crazy insane gear. So following my gear might be a bit easier because I don't have Ben's gear, because Ben's gear is like even more beyond mine, right? Real quick, because I already started going over it, we are using a kineticist, mostly for the haste aura. It also has the ability to wear all gear, which is really handy. So we've got the Doyanis alongside a comms binding for defense, Perkles for that lucky damage. For defense, because obviously Doyani builds have they have really bad like res, right? They have 0 lightning res effectively. I've got Svalin, Anointed Spell Block, and Rainbow Strides. This tech was from BenQ, and it allows you to basically get Spell Block capped. Now, to be clear, you don't need the Svalin, he just uses a rare shield. I just kind of realized, like, this is pretty freaking insane on a Merc, and I happen to have one. Just use a rare shield with Spell Block and Block, though, obviously. Res cap on the gloves, and then blind wand. This is very optional. In fact, it's maybe even a good idea to not wear a weapon at all, because it gives them better AI then. Not sure how I feel yet about that. We'll see. And then obviously the minus lightning res rings. So that's the Merc covered. Let's go over the actual Trickster itself. So, the core of the build is obviously the weapon. This is nothing new. This build has been played for the last year. Obviously, we had setlist for a year, so we've played this build for a year. My first time actually playing it properly, but this weapon allows you to scale your damage off your energy shield, which, obviously, if you have a lot of energy shield, which we do, we have almost 18k now, you end up with a ton of flat damage. Like, this is giving me some obnoxious, like 2,500 flat damage, which is just obnoxious, right? It also gets energy shield on top of that, and flat, and I mean, it's just a broken item. You can even corrupt this for Resolute Technique. If you don't have Resolute Technique, you can just take this accuracy wheel, and that solves you pretty well. Now, the trick to getting this sword SSF actually comes from this divination card. So, Exarch Altars have a option. You have to keep an eye out for it, but you can get weapon divination card reward from Exarch Altars. Then you hand in this set, not on a level 90 character, but on a level 40 character. And that will actually give you an eye level 40 sword. Using that eye level 40 sword, you can then Ancient Orb it, and it's like 40 Ancient Orbs. Now, obviously being a Trickster, we are abusing this node on the tree. Same as always, Escape Artist. It did get nerfed, it's still good. But we want a big Evasion ES chest and a big Energy Shield helmet to give you the big extra bonus ES from the chest and big bonus evasion. The way you can do this, it all comes, basically all the gear, the helm, the chest, the gloves, the boots, and the shield, it all comes down to recombinating. So this is almost going to be more of a recombinating guide than anything else. And this is good for Trade Lake too. If you don't want to go out of your way to spend 20 plus divines on all these, like each helm, gloves, boots, and shield is going to be like 20 divines or some shit, right? Sometimes more even. So if you don't want to bother with that, and you don't mind a bit of like, you know, work, you can just craft it yourself pretty easily actually. Surprisingly, it's not even really RNG that much. You basically need to pick up bases, and you can see I just picked up 84s even. You don't even have to pick up 86, and you're just picking up, like, as you can see, tabs full of bases, tabs full of helms, boots, gloves, right, and shield. And what you're doing is you're alt rolling using a regex, which I'll link in chat now and I'll show. Ben was kind enough to make a regex sheet. So you can literally just grab the regex for his, what do you call it, from the sheet here. And you can roll, let's say I wanted to roll a helmet, right, with the regex from the sheet. You go to your helmet tab, chuck in the regex. You grab some orgs, some alts. And yeah, you just sit here rolling until you get, you know, recombinable bases, right? Like that. Boom. Then you would take... Basically, there's two stages of progression to this build, I would say. There's two main stages. You have stage number 1, where you're going for 2 mod. So 2 mod would just be ES and flat. So I could take this mod and this mod. And now this is the important bit. You want to make sure that you're recombinating with unpredictable, right? Because as you can see, it's a 20% chance to do on the predictable recom, and it will destroy the base entirely if it fails. Unpredictable, however, will not destroy the base. You'll only lose 1 base, and it's a 35% chance. So then you can recombinate here. And you can see we got unlucky. But you just do that 3 times on average to get a 2 mod helmet. And that would just be your starter gear, right? That would be your basic, you know, noob starter gear. And that's exactly what I did. I had a 2-stat helmet myself before I upgraded to triple. And then that's totally serviceable. Now, once you do eventually... Let's say this did hit and this was 2 good stats. This was ES and flat. And then let's say we also had hybrid and flat. You would recom again. And then it's also, if you have 2 mods on one helmet and 2 mods on the other, one mod being the same, of course, right? Let's say they were both had flat on them. It is a 1 in 3 again, roughly, closer to 30%. To hit again, to hit triple prefixes. Again, I lost, but just pretend that hit. And then that's literally how I crafted the helmet, the shield, the chest, the gloves, and the boots. Exactly like that. You can also take it a step further, which is what Ben did do, obviously. You can also recombinate int as a suffix. So when you're starting with those 1-stat bases, you add int as a suffix by recombinating a prefix and a suffix together. But that adds an extra layer on top of everything else, which is why you don't want, which is why I didn't bother. And you can ultimately recraft the suffixes using divine orbs and eldritch currency. But it can be useful if you're trying to hit like something that would be very difficult to hit, like, I don't know, spell suppression on a chest, for example. It could be good for something like that. I probably wouldn't do it outside of like spell suppression on a chest, or maybe +2 max on a shield, because it is like another step above. But yeah, and the beauty of it is all this costs is gold, dust, and alts, and obviously the bases themselves. All of these are very cheap. Like, I think on softcore trade you can get, is it like 500,000 dust for 1 divine roughly? Gold, sorry, 500,000 gold for 1 divine. And you could probably also disenchant tier 0 uniques, or just a bunch of tier 2s and tier 3s. So dust and gold is relatively cheap. And then alts obviously are abundant this league, especially if you're doing abyss farming. So I would say it's like 2.4 mil dust for 1D. Yeah. So based off dust and gold prices, and again, as an SSF player, I don't care about that. But even as an SSF player, I can tell you, crafting this gear is cheap. The problem is it's a lot of work, right? Mostly picking up the bases and alt rolling just takes time and effort. But if you're willing to do it, right? If you're willing to do it, you can craft very, 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 very good gear for very little. Obviously that begs the question though. Let's say you do hit the triple tier 1 prefixes, right? Like this helmet. How do you get the suffixes? Now, full disclosure, if you want good suffixes, it can get really expensive. This build doesn't necessarily need the best suffixes. You're really just going for things like int and res. And even then, the gear pressure is quite low for res because you're CI. If you take a Lyra and just have a rare ring, like it's very easy. You could I would actually go as far as to say you can just multi-mod the suffixes for 4D by scouring the prefixes and then multi-modding, and that would be more than good enough. But you can see what I did, and I think this is actually not a bad idea. Yeah, Veteran Defender, thanks for Edron. But what you can actually do is you can do the new Veiled Chaos Orb. Well, old is new. But you do prefixes cannot be changed Veiled Chaos Orb, and there's actually a really respectable int suffix that also hybrids with either Dex or Strength. And you do actually want Strength on this build. So Strength and In is a really good option here. Then you just settle on whatever suffix you got. You can see I got Firers here. On the shield, for example, I got double damage and avoid ailments. Chest, I went for Strength and avoid ignite, which is actually allowing me not to need a Storm Shroud because you get chill and freeze from being a trickster. Shock I have from my Ghastly Jewel and boots, and then the rest just comes from the shield and this chest. So I'm actually ailment immune without needing to waste a jewel socket. So, and I still have that int roll on there, as you can see. So if you're willing to, I would say Veiled Chaos Orbs are a pretty nice addition to the build that are very cheap. Like, the Veiled Chaos Orbs themselves are next to nothing. You just need to use the meta craft. Prefixes cannot be changed to be able to use them. And remember, as a tip, if you do fill those suffixes, you have Eldritch Currency to back you up. You can always wipe the suffixes on these 4 slots. It's only the shield that can fill and brick. What, Pantheon? Yeah, so as I mentioned, you are immune to freeze and chill by being a trickster. Now, stun immune is a pain. You can use suffixes on gear, crafts on the bench, or jewels, or tattoos. Ultimately, tattoos are best. As you can see, I now have 5 of them. The rest is just coming from jewels, as you can see. Which reminds me, I might even be able to drop... Yeah, I can actually drop one of my stun jewels now, I believe. Yeah, I can. Pog! Yo, upgrades, chat. Upgrades live. So I think that covers most of the ES gear. Then, of course, we have Whispers of Infinity. Now, I wasn't sure if this amulet would be good or not for this build. It gives a lot of flat ES, so it gives you more ES than any rare amulet you're going to be able to wear, which is really cool. Except for, like, obviously an instacking amulet, like a Simplex. However, the real benefit is that you now can right? With Prismatic Tincture and not, like, be annoyed by it. Like, I can use my Prismatic Tincture with 31 mana, and it works really well. Normally, obviously, you're spending mana, and so it, like, you, and then you stop attacking randomly, and you can't use your dash, and your custom is taking no longer triggers, and you have to run Inspiration on your Immortal Call, and it's just a nightmare. There's another hidden benefit, though. So it's not just the quality of life with the tincture, it's also the quality of life of being able to run no regen and no leech and stuff like that. But there's another benefit. You can now get reflect immunity with this amulet, and you might be thinking, how does that work? Well, if you get awakened elemental damage with attacks, which I don't have yet, it'll give you cannot reflect, right? But the problem is, if you do happen to run out of mana while attacking, which it will happen on the tincture map, because the tincture literally makes you run out of mana, right? You'll attack with your auto attack, and that will instantly one-shot you because you have so much damage that an auto attack will just do a million damage and you'll just die instantly. But because you're using your ES instead of mana, you won't run out of ES, because if you run out of ES, you're dead anyway, which allows you to rely on the awakened elemental damage with attack support. Then you simply switch momentum. Blade Flurry obviously doesn't reflect because it's a minion, right? And then you switch momentum out for void manipulation, and you run a level 1 shield charge. You have very little flat fizz on the shield charge, and it only does chaos damage thanks to void manipulation. And that will actually allow you to be able to run reflect safely. You can run fizz and LE reflect. The one thing is you also need fizz conversion on the gloves on top of the mastery. I don't have this at the moment because of spell suppression. I will fix that, but I don't have it yet. And yeah, for the mercenary, just take out the wand. That's all you need to do. Just take off the weapon. Like I said before, the merc has better AI without the wand. So you should technically not be running this anyway, because it just gives you blind.
I've made do with worse.
And then the merc can run reflect, you can run reflect, and this also allows you to run risk scarabs, which is the best magic find you can do in SSF. Like it's the best farming strategy you can do in SSF right now. Obviously I've got a Shadow's Revelation. I just happened to find one. You don't need this. Technically speaking, Crusader Jewelry should be comparable anyway. I'm trying to work on Crusader Jewelry now. I just still not finished with the build, obviously. And as multiple people are probably screaming in chat, and if Toad does upload this to YouTube, I am missing quality on all my shit. I'm working on that. I'm working on that right now. Like, literally right now. Like, I'm trying to do that. Like, right now. Like, right now, chat. Like, I'll even try right now. You ready? Boom. Boom. Unlucky. Unlucky, chat. Unlucky. I happen to get double damage while focused, which synergizes well with attack speed while focused craft on the gloves. And so what that does is it gives you the skill focus. So you'll notice if I take off my gloves and my shield, I don't have the focus skill anymore. If I put my shield on, I get it. So this is a skill granted by that mod, double damage while focused. And what it does is when you press focus, you gain whatever benefits you would gain while focused. So, for example, 20% chance to deal double damage while focused, and 36% attack speed while focused. If I press this button, I will get those buffs for 4 seconds. And then when focus ends, it has an 8-second cooldown. So basically it allows you to get a burst of damage if you're willing to press a button every once in a while. So I just pressed this with Tincture, and I have like, unironically, double damage. Like, it's like super high damage boost. Only thing I haven't really gone over, I would say, is the belt. Again, I'm just working on ES percent, ES flat, elemental damage with attacks. There is, so for the ring, I would say you just dense fossil it, but the belt is a bit trickier. So for the belt, you want to get ES percent and ES flat, which ideally is also dense, but you need an open prefix. And what you want to do here is you want to do prefixes cannot be changed, reforge attack. There's actually only one attack prefix on belt, as you can see. And this allows you to essentially deterministically add wed on. You do need to get lucky though and get, I would say tier 3 or above. So there's a 50-50 there. Obviously, Crusader, you need to be careful when you're reforging because a Crusader belt will have additional mods with additional tags. As you can see, Reforged Lightning would give you Shock Avoid, which is bad. Sorry, Shock Remove. So probably Reforge Cold or Fire until you get some two good suffixes, and then just craft on the last one. So yeah, like I said, working on the belt still, working on the ring, but very, 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 very close to 20k ES, which is the goal of the build right now. Going over the tree, I have a Corrupting Blood Jewel, not a very good one. And you can see I just have like ES attack speed, ES avoid ailments, just whatever the build needs at the time. Ideally, it would all be ES attack speed with one hand or attack speed with shield jewels. I don't have that at the moment. Like I said, there's a lot of min-max this build can do. I'm at 18k ES. There are people in Trade League with over 40,000. So you can take this build very far. At this point already, I'm at the point where I could probably safely do Ubers. So the fact that I could potentially get upwards of 25k energy shield in SSF is wild. But it's really cool what you can do with this build. I did get lucky with an ES Light of Meaning. You can see it gives me 1.2k. So it's not as big right now on this setup as I would like. But it's still BIS, obviously. And then for clusters, we have got Fuel the Fight, Martial Prowess Veteran Defender, Feed the Fury, Smite the Weak Veteran Defender, and Drive Destruction, Smite the Weak Veteran Defender. So you're seeing a bit of a pattern here. You do want this Veteran Defender node. This gives you Energy Shield, all attributes, and all res. This is why res is so easy on the build. This is why your attributes are so easy minus the strength, right? This is the most important. You can technically get away without the other stats because with the amulet you don't need leech outside of tincture, and the ES leech is already covered from links and all this cluster here. So technically the, what do you call it? Fuel the Fight and Feed the Fury aren't necessarily needed. They're just nice to have. Because obviously you do have Overleech with Trickster, which means that these are always active while you're attacking. So you get massive damage boosts from this. But strictly speaking, not necessary. And you will see on the endgame version of this build, you do eventually swap to 12 passive clusters, stacking int instead. But I'm not at that point yet. That will require potentially fracturing jewels. Yeah, we'll have to do a lot of hobby farming. But yeah, anyway, that is basically where we're at with the build. As you can see, 18k ES, 20k 24k evasion now, 77 max res, spell suppression, Arctic armor, and flesh and stone. Very, very, very strong. I guess last thing to cover would be the General's Cry setup. Now, I'm not even sure how effective this actually is. I've seen two main setups with this build. You either run a Smite setup, which gives you that Smite buff that you're missing, right, for extra single target. Instead of having to rely on Val Smite, you just manually Smite once in a while, and then that will give you the extra bonus single target. Yeah, I've seen it with March of the Legion, right? Or Ben Yoink this tech from Zhang Ron, where basically you run a Desecrate, you cast it one time, and because the General Scribe does not consume corpses, it just relies on corpses, it will cast throughout the fight, giving you bonus single target damage. I'm not sure which setup is strictly speaking better. I'll have to POB it. It's a little bit hard to POB the damage from General's Cry. Like, I'm a little bit iffy on it. Like I said, not really sure which one's better, but I have been noticing the General's Cry with the Blade Flurry, the big chunks when it releases, so it's been working pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. Also adds a bit of extra clear, so yeah, feels nice. But yeah, anyway, that's where the build's at now. Long-term goals for the character: 12 passive clusters, Mage Blood, and obviously those Crusader jewelry pieces that I mentioned earlier. Do not know how I'm gonna get this, like I said, or maybe I do, chat. Maybe I do know exactly how I'm gonna get it. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, that's the entire character, and that's the plans for the character. We'll see how it goes. GG.